thank you for jumping on. Like I said, the information that's going to be shared here tonight is going to be so incredible. And so first of all, I just want to thank everybody for jumping on. This also, I just streamed it to Facebook Live, so it's also going to be on live. And so the first thing I want to say is I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank my panelists for their time this evening. I was stuck at home. First of all, my name is Sara R.H. Brooks. I'm the founding consultant of Brazen Works Consulting Ltd. And the mission of Brazen Works is to be a catalyst for systemic change through hard conversations and unique experiences. And boy, don't we have some hard conversations that we need to be talking about now. A lot of us are already having these hard conversations. But I was talking to my friend, and I was frustrated because I am residing with someone who has underlying health issues. And so I was frustrated that I couldn't get out in the streets and protest. I was frustrated that, you know, with COVID-19, that I couldn't be more visible. And I was sitting thinking about what my gifts are. And one of the gifts I have is the gift to maintain relationships and connect good people, right, for purpose. And so after having a conversation with my good friend, I decided that I wanted to, I actually watched some lives he was already doing, and based on our conversation and some things, I decided to pull the three of us together for this panel. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get in it. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. So if you all have questions, you can throw them in the chat. If you have comments or things that you'd like me to address, I will definitely be keeping an eye on the chat. So first, I want to say, this will be second, I want to say, thank you, thank you, thank you. These are my good boos, okay? These are my good boos. I have known Price literally since I was 14 years old. This is someone who I love and respect very much. And then 10 years after I met him, I met LaTarro Traylor, who is also someone who I love and respect very, very much. And I'm so happy to have the both of you on. So we're gonna get right into things. Mr. Price.
What's going on? Can you hear me?
Hey, yep, I can hear you. So we're gonna start with a gentleman who goes by the name of Price. Like I said, I've known him since I was 14 years old, and he has always kind of had some influence. And he was a police officer with the Atlanta Police Department. And I'll let him tell you why and how he walked away from that job. But he is a thriving entrepreneur who works in executive protection or executive, yeah, that's what it's called, right? Executive protection. Yep, executive protection. He is currently head of security for our beloved Cardi B, my beloved Cardi B. And so logistics and protection and all of those things are right up his alley. So Omari, can you start off by telling us a little bit about your professional experience?
So I was on the Atlanta Police Department for 10 years, and had the pleasure of working in some discretionary units, proactive policing. That was the thing, and had a little bit of time as a patrol officer, but I guess I said, but bulk of my time was on a discretionary unit. And during that time, I used my policing to benefit my community. I made sure that as I was doing these arrests and doing all this this work, I was doing it mainly for selfish reasons, really, to influence and be example to young Black men, period, point blank. That's it. So I wanted to infiltrate the system in my way. And I would, as I'm chasing the likes of little Baby and some other rappers and stuff like that, I started to see that I was getting lost in the culture of policing. And what I mean by that is I was changing what I had my purpose established as, and then almost aligning with the purpose of the police department. And that was something that they do for all, or do to all police officers, in my opinion. And somewhere along the lines in 2015, 2016, after Trayvon Martin's murder and Mike Brown's murder, I said enough is enough. In particular, on the day of the first day of riots, or not riots, but protests that we had in Atlanta. It wasn't no damn riot. I stood face to face with Black men and women and teenagers that looked like me. And I said, what'd you say, God? Enough is enough? Okay, enough is enough. Done. You ran your course, it's done. All those good things that you talked about, you have the same uniform on as the quote unquote bad police. So because of that, I couldn't no longer represent the uniform in that way. And I had to separate myself. So I walked away from it. And but I walked away with a plan. I said, I'm going to be a business owner that's also going to infiltrate another industry, and that's executive protection, close protection, personal protection, bodyguard work. And here I am, in a nutshell.
So you mentioned that, you know, in the past and in conversations you've shared publicly and in conversations you and I have had, you've shared that you became the jump out king, right?
Not the king. No, not the king. No, not the king.
Oh, okay. Well, you became the jump out
boy. We call it jump out boy.
Okay,
That's
the jump out boy.
Yeah. Rappers, like you listen to any Young Jeezy, Gucci Mane, Lil Baby, they talk about Red Dog, and yeah.
Okay. So you became the jump out boy.
Yeah.
So okay, so what are the most important things you think that citizens should know pertaining to their rights in dealing with the police?
The number one right that I see violated on a day-to-day basis is talking. Unless
I'm
you
gonna
are
take some notes.
Right, unless you are being verbatim, and I mean every single word of these Miranda rights. Unless somebody is reading you your Miranda rights, you have no grounds to speak to police. Period. Point blank. There's nothing else. Nothing else. There's no in between. And especially if you are not being charged with a crime, especially if you are not have no reasonable suspicion, or that police officer has no reasonable suspicion to think that you have committed a crime, which means you shouldn't have been detained, so you should not be questioned. So that's the number one thing.
So when people are being questioned, you know, I was told once that when a police officer is asking you questions, like when you get pulled over for a speeding ticket and they say, do you know how fast you're going? They're looking for admission of guilt. So if they are asking questions, and how do you handle that? Do you just walk away? Do you just say, I'm not talking to you? How would a citizen handle that?
There's no general way, but I would say it's scenario specific.
Okay.
Because if you're in a vehicle, obviously they've stopped you for some kind of traffic infraction, or something's wrong with your vehicle or something like that. So in that situation, give them exactly what they is required by federal law, which is some kind of identification to say that you're able to operate that motor vehicle, and then the registration or their insurance as well. And sometimes it's on your phone now, so you don't necessarily have to have that paperwork. But that's about it. And then you say, they'll advise you why they stopped you. In turn, especially if they ask you, the speed limit? Nope, sure don't. It's not my job to necessarily know the speed limit as long as I'm adhering to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to be technical, if you want to be all sarcastic, I'm gonna give you the same kind of energy you letting off.
Okay.
That's just me.
Okay. So I've seen in the past people, me specifically, I've been stopped or, asked for ID, and I wasn't told why I was being stopped until after I submitted my ID.
Right.
So is it required for police officers to submit ID or to request that up front, or can they request ID without?
Right. So they're supposed to, number one, advise you of who they are and who they're representing. I'm
Okay.
Officer Price with Atlanta Police Department. I have stopped you for this reason, that reason. Not did you know about something or did you see this? No, I'm stopping you for this reason.
Okay.
That's it.
And if they don't?
Hmm?
If they don't, because we know
Well,
everyone doesn't adhere. So if they
right.
don't, how do you handle that?
Well, I want to skip to how I would advise you to handle any traffic stop.
Okay, that was our next question. So go ahead.
Okay, I guess we're going to segue into that. So
Okay.
the way you handle a traffic stop, and this is from a police officer who has done this on countless occasions on the other side of things, is as soon as you see those blue lights and sirens, or hear the sirens as well, you will then call 911, put your phone on speakerphone, put it on the dashboard. The reason why you're doing that is to up the accountability. The accountability is very, very important because most officers don't bank on, number one, you knowing your rights, and they don't bank on any other accountability being bestowed upon them. Usually, it's just the accountability of you, them, and maybe the dash cam or maybe the body cam.
Okay.
Some police officers have turned them off or said later on that they didn't know it wasn't on, or accidentally hit it. All these kind of different scenarios. So first, dial 911, put your phone on speakerphone, so then they can't say that you are looking, or they can't particularly point out anything that they can interpret as being a threat to them. As well as when you call 911, advise them of your location and ask for a supervisor.
Okay.
That's important as well. Most of these officers that you see committing these infractions, or I'm sorry, not infractions, uses of force being escalated or ending in fatal injury to an individual, is stemming from them not being accountable to something higher than themselves. Any supervisor that wants to alleviate any kind of burden of violating your rights or any kind of use of force. No supervisor wants that at all.
Okay.
So when that officer comes up to your car and advises you of whatever I just said, them introducing themselves and why you've been stopped, you say, okay, officer, I understand that. Here's my license and registration. Just want to advise you I've started 911 for my safety, and also request the supervisor. As you know, the things that are going on in our society involving police and citizen contact, I just want to do this for my safety. Here you go.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So there's a question that came in. What areas would you say police training is lacking?
I believe in two ways, of course, and they're kind of related, but one part is situational detachment. So, or situational de-escalation. So,
Okay.
in the example of Mr. Brooks, if I have already, because I made contact with the driver, I have his ID or license, and I have the vehicle right there. He's already stepped out of the vehicle. I'm already making physical contact with him. He resists. He fights me. He whips me. Really got the advantage on me. He runs away. I don't care. I don't care. It is not necessarily illegal to necessarily run from the police. You know what happened was my feelings got hurt. So if my feelings got hurt, that's when I chase. Okay. But I would not have chased because I already have your ID. I'm just going to go back to my precinct and issue out a warrant.
Okay.
That's easy. That person, Mr. Brooks, was not a threat to myself any longer because he wasn't in his vehicle.
Right.
He wasn't a threat to anybody else because he wasn't in his vehicle. I had possession. I had seized his vehicle.
Right.
And I had seized his ID. So I'm good.
Right.
So in that situation, just go ahead and detach yourself from it or de-escalate it without putting your emotions and your feelings into it.
Okay.
But again, they haven't taught that in the academy. So that's one thing that is, is lacking. It's how to de-escalate it and use another ulterior solution to everything, that it doesn't jeopardize you, your oath of office, or your SOPs and policies.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, you're saying they have a lack of emotional intelligence.
No, it's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
Just a lack of not knowing
Okay.
how to detach themselves or de-escalate it, because in the academies we're only taught how to handle that situation, right then.
Mm-hmm.
And if it goes left, continuing with or upping the ante, not how to bring it back down.
Okay.
Got
it.
But yeah, sometimes people do add their emotion into it, but it's even just the mental Rolodex of different scenarios. There's never one to de-escalate. It's always to continue to go up.
To escalate.
Right.
Got it. Thank you for that clarification.
No,
so
no problem.
Question that came in that says, what if they don't declare who and what they are upon contact? And someone else said, it just appears sometimes they just want an excuse to shoot. So when people are running, that gives the police a reason, to suspect or to chase or, things like that.
Yeah, because people run for different reasons. People run out of fear. People, may have had situations before, that didn't end up too much in their favor. So they're, kind of just apprehensive of wanting to even have that police and citizen contact.
Right.
So yeah, sometimes they don't introduce themselves, but telltale signs that someone is a police officer: they have a first initial, they have a last name, or a badge across from that identification of their name. They have they're pretty well put together as far as the uniform is concerned.
Okay.
They're using certain verbiage that is consistent with being a peace officer. So even if you suspect that they're not, if you suspect that they're not based on not having those things, then yes, I would continue to advise 911. Hey, this is my location. I do not know if this is a police officer or not. Do you have a officer by the name of Officer Price? I'm telling you, all of this is recorded.
Okay.
So those are things that you can, use to your advantage. You don't have to open your window all the way. Just enough to give them your ID and what they ask for.
Okay.
There's no law stating you need to open your window all the way down or leave your doors unlocked or all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay. So what would you tell your sons about interactions with the police to keep them alive?
Besides running?
Tell me more about the running, because you just brought up running, and we know Tamir Rice ran, and he's dead now, right?
Right.
So speak a little bit to why you would tell your sons to run from the police.
Yeah. I'm saying that almost in the borderline of candidly, sarcastically, as well as like it's a real option, because almost in a way it's like everybody has seen what happens even when you listen, right? Even when you think you're in the best situation possible, I'm listening to this officer's verbal commands. So I'm not gonna necessarily use that right now. I'm gonna say try to remain as calm as possible, and you don't interject your emotion into it. Even when you're right, you can be right in the wrong way.
Okay.
And that's why I want to keep that accountability to someone outside of the officer that's making contact with me, which is the 911 operator, their recorder, as well as a supervisor who's been dispatched to my location. And so the decisions that I make in that moment, or the communications that I make in that moment with the officer, is not for the right now necessarily, it's for the later. It's for the, yes, I'm in fear of my life right now, I'm nervous, but let me do everything I'm supposed to do so that later, if they have violated, me in any kind of way, my rights, or if it turns to a serious altercation physically with the officer, then I can my attorney can now use everything and all the the things that I use, as far as the recording from the 911 operator and the supervisor, as grounds to say, listen, I was violated. My civil liberties were literally violated in this situation.
Okay. How would one know when their rights are being violated? So if I'm
you got
okay,
you got to
tell me
read up
more about that.
You have to know that in some states, you know, you don't have to have, say, like you go open carry state. It doesn't matter if it's on your seat, in your lap, anything. Read up on that stuff. Read up on the different traffic infractions that you can sustain as a driver. But you have to arm yourself, because not knowing it is not an excuse. So if I'm a person who drives a lot, then I need to know what grounds can I be stopped for. Is it legal to have a tent? Is, all these things. So that when you are stopped, you can articulate everything that officer, who may not know these laws.
Right.
Back in Atlanta, there was a situation at the airport. Atlanta is a city in Georgia. Everybody didn't know that, obviously, is an open carry state, and that's everywhere public.
Okay.
So guess what else is a public area? The airport.
Oh.
Because it's city property.
Mm.
And so that in that situation, there was a person, a man, who was carrying a rifle just to show, hey, I can do whatever I want. Now, of course, it did alert us, police at the time, but
Right.
guess what? He was in his full right. And if he was a different color, it would have ended up differently. But that's neither here nor there. So I would definitely arm myself with my rights, and you have to know them better than the police know them, because they don't always necessarily know the ins and outs of them. Sometimes the rights change, or the requirements for certain things change.
Okay. So there's a question about going back to, so you're getting a lot of yeses, preach, amen, good stuff. So I want to give you a kudos there. Can we go back to the 911 call with the supervisors? There's a question. Can you stay still until the supervisors come?
Can you say still? What do you mean?
Okay, well, hold on. Let's see. All right. Mr. Hill, are you able to ask the question yourself? Let's see. You on here? He's muted.
Yeah, unmute yourself, and you got to unmute him.
Oh, okay. Robert?
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Price would like more information about your question about, can you stay still until the supervisors come?
When they approach the car and you inform them that you contacted 911 and requested for a supervisor to come, at that moment, can you just keep doing anything and wait till the supervisor comes, or
no? I
would
advise,
have to do something.
Hey, Mr. Hill, I would advise you to still give that officer exactly what he's requiring, which is, an ID that states that you can operate a motor vehicle, because he is within his right. If he has noticed a traffic infraction, switched the lane by accident, didn't know it, that's his grounds for stopping you. And all right, lastly, well, actually, that answers your question, but I got to go off on another tangent about something else. So does that answer your question? Yes, go ahead and give the ID.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thank you, sir. I'm gonna remute you. Oh, you got another question? Okay.
No, that's me.
Go ahead.
All right, so another big thing that piece of advice I would give you guys would be, if that officer has said, I stopped you for having tinted windows, or I stopped you because you switched lanes, right? That's a traffic infraction. So guess what I would want? I want that infraction. Give it to me. That's going to be something that you can use later on, because if he doesn't give it to you, right, that means that he was harassing you, probably, correct? Or he's searching for something else.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why I'm saying that is because when I was an officer, I wanted to get into your car. If I thought you had dope or drugs or something, I want to get in your car. So, yep, you got a brake light out. But then after I make the stop, I can't find no dope in the car. Damn, what am I gonna do? I decided one time, and this took me one time to do it, I failed to give that person a citation for the reason why I stopped him. My supervisor chewed me out. Oh my God. And he said, what are you doing? That person then later gave me a complaint because I failed to give them the citation, issue them a citation because that's what they need. That was my reason, my probable cause for stopping him in the first place. So if I don't do that, I'm creating problems for myself.
Okay.
So make sure you as a citizen require them to give you a citation. And if that 911 operator has been advised and or the supervisor has been advised, they're going to hold them accountable to that. So so why did you stop that car? Oh, he changed lanes, abruptly without signaling. Okay, then what? Make sure then you give him that citation.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that sounds a little crazy, but that's going to help you in the end.
Okay. So I like to get out of tickets. Okay.
Yeah,
So
I understand it. We're trying to also hold them accountable so that they don't take advantage of somebody else.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
It's about changing the accountability. So
Okay.
if you don't issue me a citation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then why are you even stopping me?
Right.
And if you can't prove why you're stopping me, then you get a complaint.
Right.
So that's how you're gonna hold them accountable to, even in that situation, the grounds, the probable cause, or the reasonable suspicion for them stopping you in the first place.
Okay. All right. See, I was always like, "Ooh, I didn't get a ticket. I'm good."
Yeah, that's
Okay.
cool. That's cool. I understand.
Okay.
When you want some money later on for getting harassed instead of
I'd rather just not be harassed, to be honest. But
right. No, hey, I'm
okay.
with
So, can you talk a little bit about in previous interviews that you've done? You talked a little bit about the Fourth Amendment and reasonable cause and
suspicion, yeah. Mm-hmm.
probable cause and reasonable suspicion. Can you talk
Yeah.
a little bit about that?
So there's only two ways I can make contact with you. And the Fourth Amendment protects every citizen from unlawful searches and seizures.
Okay.
That is drilled into the head of every police officer. However, what's also drilled into the head of every police officer is how to articulate, i.e., make up or extend the small proof of something a little further. So your car is an extension of your house. So I can't get in your car unless I have a reasonable suspicion. An example of maybe an odor of marijuana in states where it's not legal. I used to literally drive right down the street with my windows open. I'm looking for weed, and I can do that by inhaling. So if I go up to your car and I smell the weed, okay, that's my grounds to get in the car. So make sure that you know that they can't get in any locked areas, the trunk or your glove compartment, without a warrant, pure point blank. Or if you get out of the car and you just say they ask you to step out of the car, right? Roll up all the windows, close the door behind you, turn off the engine, and lock the door. They cannot get in that car without a warrant because it is locked. They can't unlock it without a warrant. It is locked. So know that the reasonable suspicion or probable cause, which is more a bigger word than is actually letting on, is the only way that they can continue with their investigation beyond you and being investigated. And beyond you giving them permission.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to recap that so I make sure that I heard you correctly. So the Fourth Amendment prevents unlawful search and seizure.
Yep.
And your car is an extension of your home, and
Yep.
police officers have to be able to articulate
Mm-hmm.
why they need to get into anything of yours. You fit the description of a robbery. I'm just making something up.
Okay. And anything that's locked.
Right.
Locked.
So, but they can't get into stuff that's locked, and the car is an extension of your home. So if I'm asked to step out the car, I can roll up the windows, turn off the engine, close the doors, lock the car, and just hold the keys.
Yep.
And then they can't get in the car without a search warrant.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. So, what do you do if you find that your rights are being violated? So even if we were asked to step out of the car, even if there's a 911 call on, what would you do in that situation? Even if there's a 911 call, even if the supervisor's been called, but you still feel like your rights have been violated? Because what we tend to do is we tend to fight because we're scared.
Right.
So
And that's, I mean, and that, let me tell you something. I'll be the first to tell you that I get it. I get it. At the same time, you're fighting a no-win battle at that moment. Okay. At that moment. Because I want my people to live. That's it. Right now, I want us to live. So you're not going to get your point across with an entity that is telling you, I'm going to violate your rights in this moment. So you fighting is not the best choice in that situation, okay, unfortunately. However, in those moments that you can, try to remain calm and try to remain, as poised as you can, mm-hmm, it will work in your favor later on, so that they won't try to spin your actions in any kind of way. Mm-hmm. It's not always about winning now. I'm saying that fighting back tears. However, I want us to live. I want us to live. So we gotta, at the same time of knowing what was going on and trying to keep a recollection of it, maybe that's a better way of explaining it. Pay attention to every detail that you can while your rights are being violated. Yep, they said this. I heard them call me nigga. Yep. Yeah, he referred to me as a criminal that looked like this dude over here. And I know I'm not that person. Or he's lying on this. Have all those things that accountability can be given or later date, not the right now.
Okay. So. Thank you. Okay. So thank you very much for that. And I can't help but think of Rayshard Brooks as you were talking about that, right? And mm-hmm, how he could have maybe done some things differently and still be alive. So what is appropriate to do when you see someone else's rights being violated? So like in the situation of, an Eric Gardner or a George Floyd, right? When, this is not right. Even if you don't know law, you feel in your gut this is not right. So what would you do when you see someone else's rights being violated? Right.
So continue to, stay on that scene from a safe enough distance for yourself, not for I'm not thinking about the officer, for your safety, so that they won't try to violate your rights and confiscate your camera and telling you that it's not lawful for you to film them or record them. Record. Yes, it is. Okay. Very much so. Very much so. As long as you're not preventing their investigation of this crime or this traffic stop or whatever it is. So continue recording. Call 911 if you can do it simultaneously. If you got two phones or having somebody else at the scene that can do one of those things. Call for that supervisor, and just document as much as you can, as much as you recollect. If you can see the officers' names, close enough for that, or you're hearing several racial slurs being given out, that's all you can do. Yeah, that's all I would advise you to do.
Okay, yeah. I feel like there's more to that.
I just because I want people to stay safe. Everybody not supposed to be, everybody got to play their role in this, should I say? So anybody else can read between the lines of what I'm saying, but just film them, okay?
Okay.
Just film them.
All right. So, with that question, I think of the group of young boys recently. I think it was Clayton County, that were filmed with an officer having the gun out, and I know that the backstory kind of came out later. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, with the young boys at the
with the young boys.
Yeah.
What is your take on that? Being a mom of young boys, I'm worried for their safety all the time, because when they still leave the house, they're Black boys, and I know data shows that Black boys are aged a lot higher than what they actually are by police on a pretty regular basis. What was your take on that? Like if I were driving down the street and I seen a police pointing a gun at multiple young men, which this has happened in Grand Rapids, Michigan a couple years ago, and it was a big outcry about it. What is the right steps to take in that moment?
You asked so many questions in this question.
I'm sorry.
First of all, what I would have done, number one, I know what toy guns look like. And even though they're close in resemblance to real guns, there's some telltale signs physically that may not be, the regular citizen may not be privy to, such as orange piece on the end of the barrel or under the barrel, the way the triggers are, the way the material that is made out of, and unless that young boy was aiming that gun at me in a threatening way, or just aiming it, period, at me or anybody else, I'm going to treat it and de-escalate it by using my mouth, by talking, by using my verbal judo. Hey man, like, what's going on? What you doing? I got, somebody said you pointed a gun at them or da-da-da. They'll be like, no. Okay, well, guess what? Come here for a second, man. First of all, let me get it. I'm gonna talk to. I know how to talk to black men, but or people in general. But so me escalating the situation to pulling out my gun on some young boys who obviously stopped just using my verbal commands. Because let me tell you something. If young guys or anybody for that nature want to get away from the police, guess what? They're gonna get away from them. Period. So just them listening to you, just by your sheer command, and they stayed, at their place, at where they standing, as you got out your car and were able to draw down on them, that's showing compliance. Cool, you're complying with everything I'm saying. Now put the gun down. Okay. There's no reason to continue putting each one of their lives in danger, as well as whoever's on the other side of that gun. Because guess what? Just like in the case of Mr. Brooks, an innocent car was hit, which is why that officer sustained 3 more charges of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. Right. So I'm responsible for every round that comes out of my gun as an officer. Every round. Okay. And I'm sorry, it wouldn't have been worth it. Yeah. I'm sorry, I wouldn't even ask all that stuff. Sorry. But if I saw that, definitely film it, call it, Jesus. It's the world we live in.
Someone made a comment, and he said, it seems like we should be able to do more, pull the officer out without getting shot.
What'd you say?
He said, it seems like as citizens, we should be able to do more. An example of that is pull the officer off without getting shot.
Again. So that was the in between the lines I was talking about or referring to, but I wouldn't advise that because again, brother or Miss Ma'am.
It's a sir.
Whoever said that, I got what you're saying. I totally understand. I totally understand. But at the same regard, I, sir, want you to live. And I know that if you escalate the situation, they're going to articulate that you got in the way of that investigation. Because although something may look like, because there's times where certain things it looks like it's a certain way. Say, the same situation happened, but it was another name attached to it, Mr. Davis. And Mr. Davis is a convicted felon. And he had a gun in the car. Well, felons can't have guns in the car. So you see them wrestling, but you don't know the backstory. Right. And then you go push the officer off of them because of things that's going on right now. You would have been in violation and you'd be arrested on several charges. So I wouldn't advise that. Okay. Be very, very careful of that. You may not be able to live to tell that story, or, what if they continue to violate now your rights now and they're whipping on you? So although that sounds good, really implementing it is going to be another thing. And I wouldn't want to put your life or anybody that you love live in jeopardy.
He said, understood. A question comes in, would you ever serve as a police officer again?
Nope. The reason why is, so for a long time, I was rationalizing, those are the bad cops over there. They doing the messed up things to my people. I'm sitting over here wearing the same uniform that if I went to a block and saw 50 gang members or who I perceived as gang members, and then I go up to those people and talk to them, and only 25 of them are gang members, and other ones say, nah, we just wearing the same colors as the gang members. But y'all all look the same though. Y'all wearing the same uniform. In the same regard, I, sir, am the problem. I'm a part of the cop. I'm a bad cop too. Because I'm not stopping in any kind of way. So I rather separate myself totally from a system that I have seen and witnessed things that are like atrocities that are committed against my people, and fix it from the outside in, not the inside.
Got it.
Okay. Nope. Hell no. I'm never gonna have a boss again. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry.
You made me lose track of my question. If it comes back, I'll ask it. Okay, I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then I'm gonna ask. Okay. Okay, there's some questions coming in. I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to ask you to hang tight while we give LaTarro an opportunity to talk, and then I'll come back. And I'll come back and ask you both some questions. What is your take on defunding the police unions? And for the questions coming in, I will try to get to those.
Well, I would say, the question now is specifically defunding police departments, and a part of that is those police departments that have police unions, because not everyone does. Like the city of Atlanta did not have a police union when I was on.
Oh, so okay.
We didn't have no protection like that. You on your own. The city was going to detach themselves, as you see what's going on right now. Mm-hmm. Those officers are being criminally charged, within what I guess is a week and a couple of days since Mr. Brooks' murder.
Yeah. Well, the convictions haven't come yet, but that is a huge step. That's a huge step.
No court date yet. But so I'm in favor of it in different kind of ways. Number one, police departments benefit from the huge umbrella of protection from police unions. So that has to be looked at. And, as far as looking at where the funds is going or how they're being allocated. Can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
Okay. And just seeing, how the funds can be better used for justice to be served, not only for us Black people, but for those officers that sometimes do tell on the good officers, the bad officers. They got to be protected too, because they trying to get out. They trying to, serve the people in the best way they can, but they suffering ridicule from the bad officers or the culture that they're a part of. But and then what?
You need a moment? I think he's working.
Yeah. Some paparazzi. Anyway, one second. So yeah. So just makes I want to see the reform come from how the public or the citizens can have a part in knowing and deciding where the money will go that the police departments are getting. Okay. That I feel like the public needs to have a say so in that, because they know they know what services they need in their different neighborhoods, in their counties, and in their cities. So why not have a liaison or an ambassador that's a part of the some kind of committee that can tell the police department, hey, this is where you need to spend the money, and they have to spend it in that way, whether it be in local school department, schools that have their private protection, or they have a police department, a specialized police department in there, or in the PAL, because when I was coming up, we had PAL.
I played softball in PAL.
Yeah. And so those are ways that I feel like the public can feel a part of the decision making of where those funds are going. not just taking it away necessarily, but actually being utilized the way they should be.
Dope. Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm gonna come back to you in a few minutes.
I'll be back after these messages. Stay ready.
Okay. All right.
Girl,
So next,
I done got into a fight on Facebook, so I'm gonna have to catch up with y'all another time.
I know you playing. So I would like to introduce like I said earlier, my good friend LaTarro Traylor. She is an attorney at law who has definitely been on the front lines of community work for, at minimum, the last 15 years. And so, LaTarro, can you tell us a little bit about your professional experience, please?
Professionally, like a job?
No.
Okay, because it's been horrible.
Just your experiences.
Oh, you know what? It's been a bunch. I mean, it's really been just, you know what I'm saying, the typical Black experience. No guidance, no role models, no network, no resources. You got to get it out the mud, do it on your own. And then you hope eventually one day your culture, your community gonna meet you halfway, but they don't, because they don't got their shit together either. So you like literally gotta like go the distance on your own. So took the bar exam 5 times. I didn't really have, I mean, I wasn't really trying to be a lawyer. I mean, but you know, I was smart. I talk a lot. I like to research. I got an opinion on everything. Which that don't mean you should be a lawyer. That just means you talk a lot and you got an opinion on a bunch of stuff. But I did it. You know, I submitted to the process. I did it, and I'm on the other side.
Yeah. Whoop, whoop.
Yes.
So how have you been able to use your experience in law to serve the community, and specifically in, I don't want to say hostile environments, but environments that have not been traditionally favorable toward people of color, specifically Black people?
So, you know, just knowing, you know, how this world works in this system, I got this theory. Black people, we need a lawyer just for being Black, period. Like, as you move through and navigate, it's so much that goes on. Our rights getting violated, you know, things happen procedurally. I love what Price was saying, everything he was saying, because criminal law, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's hugely procedural. Hugely. Everybody think it's substantive, like, oh, well, you know, I didn't do it. And it's like, okay, well, you know, it ain't about whether you did it or not. It's about the sequence and the steps and things like that, or whatever, you know. So just really being there, showing up, you know, at a discount, working for people at a discount, and just telling people, like, people, you know, whatever it is, paperwork or whatever, send it to me. Let me look it over. Working on a barter system, and just like really trying to show up. You know, whenever I'm invited, there was this, I'm gonna tell this story too, just because I really need Black people to understand this is how we operate. There was an expungement fair. Now, you know, Sara, I did my own expungement, right? Mm-hmm. And someone reached out to me. So I got the group on Facebook. I got the group called BPGR. It's a group for Black people and Black stuff. Someone reached out to me to see if BPGR could be a collaborator on the event, like, you know, brand collaboration or whatever. And they wanted to get a proclamation from the mayor and everything. And I'm like, okay, person that's not from Grand Rapids, first of all. I said, all right, well, you know, I did my own expungement. I graduated from Cooley, which is the school that they were doing it in conjunction with. And, you know, I made my case, and basically let me know, you know, if you need somebody. Never hear from them, not even when they get the proclamation or nothing. The event come, it's happening. Next thing you know, I get a call. Yo, we down here, we swamped. Can you come help us? And it's that, right? Like, I always got to cape up. And so I'm always in this weird position where, like, it's always a value thing. You know, it's like, well, okay, I know LaTarro is a lawyer. I know what she does and who she is. but I'm not gonna bring her in for whatever reason. So it's really been a struggle, really, because I always like to say that I'm an attorney for Black people, right? Like my specialty is helping people start businesses and grow businesses. But honestly, I'm kind of at the service of Black people because we need a lawyer just for being Black. So it's been interesting. I'm gonna say that it's been interesting.
When you say we need a lawyer just for being Black, are you saying that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the way that I interpret that is that being Black is being criminal?
Question for you.
Hey, you unmuted yourself. Hold on, Omari. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is. And there's studies that, and this one in particular, it talks about, so they do a compare and contrast between Black culture. I hate when people say Black community because I feel like that minimizes the Black contribution to
Okay.
this whole entire global existence. So they compared and contrasted Black culture with whiteness. And what they did is they took the books that a person will read from preschool all the way to college. And they made a correlation with the words, like the words that's associated with Black, the words that's associated with white. The words that were associated with white obviously were honest, hardworking, forthright, just all of that, a manifest destiny type language. Black people, it was poor, religious, untrustworthy. So when you think about like programming, right, the input gives you the output. And so when the Black identity was created, and if you haven't watched I'm Not Your Negro by James, it's a documentary about James Baldwin. If you haven't watched that, honestly, that's all white people need to watch. Either that or Hidden Colors. And I don't think they're ready for Hidden Colors yet. So watch I Am Not Your Negro because it talks about the creation of the Negro. Like it talks about the congealing of the Black identity coming out of like Reconstruction and chattel slavery and everything, So it is a construct and it was absolutely created. Black means no rights under the law. If you're Black under the law, that means that you're dead. You're dead in the eye. Like look it up right now. Type in Black and type in legal definition, and it means you're dead in the eyes of the law. You don't have any rights under the eyes of the law. And so now we've taken it and made it an attribute of skin color, mentality, and then we put all of this diaspora stuff into it. And so we've added our layers and stuff to it. But Black really means that like you're a zombie. You just a walking person with no rights. So yes, we do need a lawyer just for being Black because the narrative around Blackness is wrong, bad, criminal, poor, like can't get right, needs to be managed. That's why white people feel like they can tell Black people what to do. Even a white kid feel like they could tell a Black adult what to do or run their life in some type of way.
Okay, thank you for that. So there was a question, and you mentioned it in your answer. There was a question that came up: what kind of law do you practice?
Mm-hmm.
And so you mentioned small business and something else you said.
Well, so yeah, just coaching, helping people really just maximize their networks around the business, because that's essentially when you go into business, you need to build a network around your business. And so that's why you feel, especially Black businesses, that always gotta ask for money because either A, they're not tapping their resource, or just because we Black, our networks probably don't have any money,
Okay.
So when you start a business, you definitely got to make sure your network is solid.
Okay. Thank you. So what are the most important things citizens should know pertaining to their rights in court, talking to police, and involving attorneys? And you didn't mention it, but I know that you do mediations and you do take court cases and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So what are the most important things that citizens need to know pertaining to their rights in that arena?
First of all, I mean, honestly, and I hate to say this, but it's so true. Whenever you're dealing with the law, you need to get a lawyer. And I understand everybody can't afford a lawyer, and that is the most unfortunate thing, you know, because I mean, if you finna have a baby, right, you're gonna go get somebody that delivers babies, which again, a baby is something that you should be able to do on your own naturally, right? Just like defend yourself or advocate for yourself. But you know, we live in this world full of constructs and full of credentials, right? And so automatically, if you can afford a lawyer, then you gotta be right. You can't be that wrong, right? You can afford a lawyer, so that means you got some money or something. And two, there's someone willing to come and advocate on your behalf, which implies that you're right. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of this is just appearances and that type of stuff. We ain't even got to the merit of the case yet, you know. And so that's why I tell Black people that. And then I even go a step further, and depending on the nature of the case, you might need to get you a white lawyer because they understand one another, right? This is why white police officers kill unarmed Black men. They don't see themselves reflected in that experience, right? Like, I'm not shooting me. I'm not shooting my brother, my nephew, my neighbor. I'm shooting Tupac or whatever, right? Because they only know about Black people from off TV. So they shoot Loke Dog off of Don't Be a Menace or something. You know what I'm saying? So, I would say, you know, because it's not possible to know your rights. I don't know. Lawyers don't even know. We research and we pay assistants and we be at the law library. We don't know off our heads, off the top of our, like, no one does. No one does. Like, it's so what's the word? Voluminous. But it's so much there. How could you? And then in the moment, right? That ain't the time for me to know my rights. That's the time for me, for two human beings to have an interaction. Okay, I know you got this uniform on and everything, but in my mind, because I know how to step out of my job and be a human being, I'm thinking you know how to step out of your role and be a human being. And clearly they don't, as we can see, right? So whenever you're dealing with the law, get an attorney. In the moment that the whatever it is, misunderstanding, I'm gonna say that's not the time to go to court. That's not the time to flex. That's not the time to and you know, like Price said at the beginning when he started off, really just be quiet. Like really, and I know it's a social, it's a society. So honestly, I think police get a lot of their power just from off the way society works, because people don't know how to be quiet. Because in our society, if you quiet, then you assuming that somebody might be thinking that you dumb or you don't know something, you know. And then two, just on a basic human biological level, when you quiet, your thoughts are loud. So you got all those thoughts going in your head, like you're gonna, you know, it's gonna flow out. But you really do need to be quiet. You don't need to be talking about nothing. If they ask you a question, and you know, do I have to answer that? You ask them that. Do I have to answer that? Because I'm gonna tell you right now, if the police asking you, then that means that they probably can't do, because they're gonna do what they're gonna do, you know. And if they're asking you for consent or asking you for information, then that means that they can't get it lawfully on their own.
Okay, thank you.
That would be my two things.
So, you know, I think to the sister Sandra Bland, she felt her rights were being violated. And you know, Price already kind of talked about this as far as, you know, not you know, engaging in that way, but sis felt her rights were being violated, and she became vocal about it. She was like, I can't wait to see you in court. I'm gonna have my day with you in court. Oh, you doing this? Oh, you gonna do that too? Bet bet. And sis never saw her day in court.
And look, that's one of the things that white people know how to do. They know how to detach their emotions away from the situation because they thinking of the bigger picture and the future. They like, you know what? I don't know what happened. I was just sitting here and then this person did this and I did that. And when in reality, they initiated the whole thing. But it's the way they know how to articulate. Not saying we can't. We might be able to do it better, but we forget because we are very emotional people. And rightfully so. But we got to change that narrative and say we want to we want to be able to get some results based on us articulating ourselves that is a way that is showing poise and nobody is feeling threatened and all that kind of stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm. So I want to add to that too, and Sarah, I want to get back to what you were saying. But
Okay.
the reason why white people can be that way is because their experiences are validated. Black people, so it's like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Their needs are met within the context of society or that pyramid. I mean, are we colored? Are we Negro? Are we African American? Like, we still trying to solidify an identity to organize around. So we're still very infantile and what, like, selfish, right? Because we're still trying to be validated as a collective. And so you're gonna naturally respond emotionally because everybody got emotions, quote unquote, right? And so, like, you're gonna respond emotionally because you feel like, okay, well, shoot, I ain't even made it past, like, they don't even see me as a person that deserves to have rights, right? Like, I was just watching a clip where a dude, like, we asking for civil rights, not even equal rights. Like, we asking, like, can you just be, like, nice to me, right? Like, dang, like, not even equal rights or whatever.
Right.
And so when you don't even have your foundation of needs met, you're going to go back to that to get that need met, and that means emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sarah, what were you saying? I'm sorry, bro.
So I was saying, because you were saying, like, it was kind of what both you and Price were saying, but just talking
Sandra
about
Bland, her.
Sandra Bland, and not
and you said she never saw her day in court.
She never saw her day in court, right?
This is the thing about that, though, and excuse me if I get, spiritual. The solstice is coming, so give me some elbow room. She was probably a blood sacrifice. Seriously, what happened with her? And when I say a blood sacrifice, I mean the system of white supremacy and racism. I do think it is an evil spirit. It's an evil system. And if you look at the footage, now I have not watched the whole footage of the Ahmaud Arbery case, just because I can't do Black trauma porn. Mm-hmm. I can't, because I'll end up out here like one. But the way that dude and his dad did that, man, it's like it was a rite of passage, And so I feel, and now maybe this gonna come out, white people, white officers, I feel like there is like some type of skull and bones, or some type of agreement where it's a rite of passage, or some type of blood sacrifice, or some type of homage that you pay to your. I don't know, but just the way that I think about, how these things happen, like, you literally out here killing unarmed people for what? For nothing, right? And it's not for nothing. So, okay, what that means, Sarah? Sarah, say that out loud. Don't type me.
Okay, I need you to make this applicable to the people who are listening. So how do you respond in those situations from a legal standpoint? So Price gave us, like, from the law enforcement perspective, but from a legal standpoint, how do you respond to those kind of incidences, to where you do have the upper advantage and you can you can get your day in court, right? I feel like Sandra Bland was very knowledgeable, and she let them know, and I think she told too much, right? And so they was like, oh, we'll make sure you don't see your day.
But that's not the place for court, though. You don't go to court on the side of the road.
Okay.
So that's why you need to be and I don't like to she should have nothing, because yes, do what you did. Like, that was her course that she took. Right. But and honestly, this the thing, though. Shit, if they don't kill, they're look. I even hate that we gotta have a conversation like, what can you do to not get killed? Like,
right.
What?
Right.
If somebody got it made up in their head that this is the night that they gonna do whatever, or you're the person, or they not feeling, like Price was saying earlier, that's just what it's gonna be. I mean, you could be quiet all day long. They still well, you wasn't answering me, so I have to hit you upside your head. And that was that, But when in doubt, just be quiet. Like, and I know it's hard, and I know your spirit, it be rising and bubbling in you, and you want to say something. But I mean, you gotta even you've got to be thinking court. And see,
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. White people like, yeah, and someone's gonna hear about this, and they know that whoever the someone that's gonna hear about this is someone that's going to be able to relate to them. So they be okay in the moment. I ain't got to do all this with you because I already
Right.
know there's gonna be some understanding on the other side of this. Whereas us, we like, shit, it might get worse after this. Let me go ahead and plead my case right now. You know.
Okay. Okay. So, so in the event that someone is arrested, what is the process after arrest, and where should an attorney get involved?
So an attorney, again, if you can afford one, right? And then it depends on if you can afford one, you need to be calling your attorney right when they telling you you're getting arrested, and you need to be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't afford an attorney, the thing about it is you don't get a court-appointed attorney unless it's a felony.
Okay.
So if it's a misdemeanor, you just essentially you got to eat that. And then once we get into criminal, we talking procedural. Maybe they didn't do something right, but if you can't afford an attorney to come and fight this misdemeanor to prove that, then now you just got to eat that or whatever, you know. And then too, this is not a knock to public defenders. Yes, it is, but they whack. You know what I'm saying? And I really hate to say that. And I mean, there's some good ones out there, and you just got to say that as a professional courtesy, right? Like, you can't make a blanket statement about that. But you got to understand the public defender is paid by the same people that pay the police, and is paid by the same people. You know what I'm saying? And then too, when you think about, and again, I got to get all on my Dr. Umar stuff. When you think about how these systems work, if public defenders start getting you off, then how these people gonna feed their family? Because a lot of people make their money off you. Okay, we ain't gonna well we'll let you plead it down. Either way, you're gonna be under some type of supervision, paying fines, whatever. You know what
Okay.
I'm saying? But their job, I feel like the public defenders work with the police and the courts and all that. I just do. I do.
Okay. Thank you. So my last question for you is that there is talk. Well, no, I have two questions for you. What do you think people need to know before they go protest? So I know in the Bay Area, the FBI came out here and they started interviewing people who were arrested at protests or participating in protests, and there was a lot of concern about people's rights being violated and them not being able to, feeling scared, feeling intimidated, and not really knowing what their testimonies would be used for and things like that. So is there something that protesters need to know from a legal standpoint before they go out to protest? And then, and then I'll ask my next question.
Well, I mean, honestly, I feel like if you're going to protest and you're going to be like breaking the law, which, okay, if you're standing in the street, you know, that's breaking the law. Especially if there's an executive order and there's a curfew, well, I mean, at this point, being off your porch at that time is breaking the law. So you definitely need to know the legal framework that you're getting ready to operate in. I mean, that's really all I got to say as far as protesting from a legal standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, shit, cover your face and stuff up, right? Wear gloves, do stuff and that's I don't care if you just going there to be straight up, on the straight and narrow and hold your sign and say whatever. But you know, you don't want to get looped into these things. I mean, it's closed circuit TV cameras on every corner. Everything is being video. I mean, everything is, and you don't want this stuff to come back and bite you in the butt eventually.
Okay. So, okay, cool. And my last question for you before I bring Price back in is, with the talk of defunding the police, do you think that the court systems should be included in that? And kind of what do you think is the solution, or what is your take on that?
Well, I don't, at this point, it's just the conversation, and I've heard a number of different ways that could happen as far as defunding the police. I mean, the court, as long as it's baby mamas and baby daddies, the court is going to exist. As long as it's people who can't agree, as long as there are, stuff like property and rights and all of that, the courts are going to exist. As far as defunding the police, I think those resources need to be shifted more to, honestly, this is the thing, the police work exactly how it was designed to work. So I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. They're here to protect property. and to lock people up. I mean, that's it, right? And then too, I mean, if you really look at the evolution of the police, you know, they used to be like all like look like the milkman back in the day. Now they look like stormtroopers, like off of Star Wars. So clearly there's some military aspect to how they're maneuvering in society and how they're governing our, you know, how we maneuver through
Right.
society. So I mean, if you understand, the police was designed to be policy enforcement officers and catch slaves and make sure, you know, put down insurrections and rebellions. I mean, shit, that's exactly what they doing right now. Like, so I mean, I don't know. I don't believe in police at all. Period. I don't. I believe in straight people figuring it out. Even if somebody got to get punched in their mouth, you know, like that's. But that's me.
Okay. Well, that's a great segue into one of the questions that I have for both of you. And then I'll double back because there's a couple of questions that came in for you, Price. So there have been arguments for citizens to police their own communities, but there have also been arguments for police officers to live in communities that they protect as neighbors. I know about 5 years ago, when all this stuff started kind of happening again, I was like, you know, if the men in our communities would stand up and police our own communities, there would be no need for outsiders to come in, right? But then there's also the argument that if police are in the communities, they're living in the communities as neighbors, they're less likely to see Lil John as, you know, a perpetrator of a crime, and because there's relationship there. And I know, LaTarro, you and I have been, and some other community folks, we've participated in kind of community work with police, with the police department, to kind of try to bridge that. So what is your take on those things? You know, do you think the police should live in the community? Do you think we should police our own communities? Like what is your and this is for both you and Price. This question is for both of you.
You hold on, sorry, girl. I told you I was in a fight on Facebook. I had to get back to that.
I need you to say focus, please.
Girl, no,
Thank you.
because every time black people start getting some attention, here come another group talking about what about us.
Okay,
Anyway,
to the question. Thank you.
yes. So yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, my friend, she get on me when I be like, we don't need police. We need, you know, we can police ourselves. I think the police, they desensitize us to human nature and what can actually happen. One day I was sitting outside the store. Sorry, I always going to. I was sitting outside the store. It was like 9 o'clock at night, and it was a lady. She was short, and her leg was broke. It was in a cast, and she was pregnant, and she had a little baby with her. And in my mind, I said the only reason she could be out here like that right now is because we have police. Right? Because if there was no, like, come on now, like, this is I got a joke. The only reason I need a man is to keep me safe from other men. Right? Like, when you think about society and how it works, like carnal human nature, now you're like, okay, we got the police. Well, the police, they don't suppress it because it's still there, it's still crime and everything there, but it gives us this false sense of security. Right. And so now you're in a situation and some stuff kind of might be getting out of hand. So now you call the police thinking like, oh, well, you know, police, you know, secure, they're going to come and secure. No, when you call the police, you're admitting that you don't have control, and they're going to show up and have control. Okay. Right. And so I think we need to understand what dynamic we're bringing about when we call. We're not calling someone to come take care of us and to be secure. We're calling somebody to come take control of us, the environment, whoever else, and possibly to harm or hurt somebody because they have guns. So I feel like, and then too, systemically, we need to understand that even if a police officer is not racist, even if they do got Black friends or whatever, it is a culture thing. It is osmosis, and it is systemic, right? And so it's not a one person thing. It's a system. It is a system thing. And so Black people, we need to be more organized in our efforts in dealing with these systemic issues like this.
Okay, thank you. Price?
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I'm going down this hill. It may cut out, but You asked how can you said something about
It was a question about policing, policing your own community or having police live in the community. What is your, well, you know, what is kind of your thought on that?
Wait, hold on. Okay, hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yep. Uh-huh.
All right. So yes, that's already happening now. That's already happening now. And then places like Atlanta, who are, you know, they have a lot of officers that are black, number one. And then also they have what's that thing called? Not only officers are black, but what was I saying? Oh, they already live in the city, live in the areas that are you know, affordable to them and their salaries, and they have allocated apartments and housing that, you know, are filled with incentives and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say what I would say is the disconnect is that those officers don't necessarily police that specific area.
Okay.
That you know, sorry, don't police it, don't live in that specific area, and people know them as, but you know what I mean, there's no interaction necessarily, not necessarily,
Okay.
down to like the personal level where you know, they know that they can call this individual officer if they necessarily, you know, maybe seeing a crime or whatever, and then if they know that also that officer is accountable to not only their department, but they're accountable to them specifically and their neighborhood. That's not there. It's just like that officer lives there. I remember when I lived in Atlanta, yeah, I was getting a nice, you know, had a nice place, didn't have to pay rent, or maybe it was half off, something like that. But I wasn't necessarily interacting with those people, because a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, people break into police's vehicles and their homes and you know, apartments as well, because they know there's usually weapons or some kind of specialized, you know, stuff, gadgets, or just something of value. So it's hard to say like, oh, that's the solution when the connection isn't there for them to be valued in that way by the people that they're serving and sworn to protect. So yeah, anything else I need to add to that?
Nope, I think you answered it. Thank you.
Okay.
But I do have a question specific for you
Okay.
from a young lady in Atlanta. In
Okay.
Atlanta, police officers were aggressive with protesters before curfew in order to be able to tear gas them and clear them out. Is this legal? Would recording these events be progressive in getting these officers removed, or are they within their rights?
Obviously, it doesn't take a necessarily a rocket scientist to notice or take notice of, in those situations, that they were violating someone's right to peacefully protest and or speak, you know, right of speech. But there also are some overlapping rights and laws and, you know, things that were going on at the same time. So while you're peacefully protesting, there were others that weren't, right? Probably, right? We saw that as well. So they probably were. It's hard to take notice of who's who. So you videotaping it is in the best interest of everybody.
You went away. Oh, maybe he's going down that hill, he was saying. Okay, well, we'll give him a second to come back. And okay. So we'll give him a second to come back in. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now we can hear you. We completely.
Sorry, I'm so
Yep.
sorry. He's getting violated. But like I said, and like what's her name? I'm so sorry, she's gonna kill me. What's your friend's name?
LaTarro?
Yeah, sorry, I'm in the middle of
LaTarro,
a.
yeah. So like she was saying, it's not time to hold court right there. They're gonna violate you even more if they already have. If they already have violated you, they're going to continue to violate you. So do not try to hold court right then. There's no jury on your behalf for trying to help you out right there. Can you hear me? Is it?
Yep, we got you. We got you. Good.
Yeah. So you know, it's not time to do that. Tear gassing was very but if somebody's already
This is bad.
you, they're gonna continue to violate you, and it's not gonna be. It's not gonna. Okay, I'm good. I'm down there on the flat ground now.
Okay, I was like, this wasn't good. Like most of what you said was.
I'm on flat ground.
Okay.
Yeah. So just
So
it's a time and place for everything.
So the answer to that was to document it.
Got to. That's it.
Okay, but not to try to have court on the street.
I mean, look, you can do what you want to do, but I'm trying to give people the best advice that I know is going to work more than likely in their favor, not for the now, but for the totality of the whole circumstances that they're facing or describing or in the middle of.
Okay. All right. So I have a couple more questions for you guys, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
So there was a question from a participant. And it was, what are your thoughts about the Black officer in training that was present during the arrest and murder of George Floyd? So I didn't even know that there was a Black officer in training there. And then my question, and this is for the both of you, is that what we're seeing and experiencing in America is not new or different. But a lot of people are saying it feels different and like now is the time to take action. Why do you think it feels different or has more action now?
Am I? Go ahead. Tell go first.
Okay.
Okay.
No, let me go first. Okay, what was the question?
Okay.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
I said what we're seeing or experiencing in America is not new. Why do you think it feels different or has more action now?
Sorry, boo, I'm focused. You don't want me to answer this question because this is straight conspiracy theory. It really is. And I'm gonna offend a lot of people.
I gotta mute him for a second.
I don't think it's sincere. I don't think anybody cares about Black people this week more than they did how many ever years ago. I think it's political. I think it's a conspiracy. I think it's a distraction. I think it's economic. So I don't know. I would love to say, well, because we're waking up and people are videotaping it and people are being more vocal on social media. No, social media is just parroting what mainstream media is saying. People going to sleep even more because it's just so much stuff to it's just so much that we shut down.
So if I understand you correctly, you're saying that you think the reason things feel different or there's more action is because it's political and economic, not because Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's an agenda. There's an overall agenda that they're trying to push, and this helps craft the narrative to get that agenda to where it needs to be. They need Black people. Either they need Black people to feel liked, right? To feel paid attention to, like I was saying earlier. Or it's just to distract white people from something.
Okay. Thank you for that. Price? Sorry, I muted you. Sorry. Okay, hold on. Oops. Okay, there you go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So this is a scenario that continues to replay itself in our society. I know for sure that America's perception of Black people hasn't changed at all. I know the police haven't changed the way they view Black people at all. And because of that, the only thing that I can say that has changed is the accessibility to videos, photos, and the real life demise and outright murder of our people. Being ever present in the in '91 when Rodney King was filmed, we thought that was going to be the end all be all. You know, we thought videotaping it and
Sure
seeing
did,
it was
didn't
a
we?
we sure, yeah. I
Yeah, we
was
like,
12
yes,
years
y'all
old,
finally
and I thought,
see, y'all see, this what we've been trying to tell y'all.
right, right. So I know for sure after the results of that trial, them all being acquitted, that at that point, just like in the civil rights time, America doesn't necessarily care about us and what it's doing to us because it was crafted in such a way that we would see these things and that would be our demise. So I think we have to be careful of, you know, putting the responsibility of how they view us on them. We need to make sure that we worry about us and not somebody accepting us or not somebody caring about us. We're going to have to care more than them, more than how they used to or do now. And we're going to have to take our own responsibility to provide and change the necessary narrative that is important for our kids and not necessarily us. Our grandparents were willing to lose everything, lose their life, lose their jobs and everything about their freedom so that we could be free and so that we could not just play with the liberties that they even fought for and lost their lives for. So instead of worrying about America or living in America, which is like being in a relationship with a girlfriend that never wanted to be with you in the first place, concentrate on being with the right person and us building us up economically, emotionally, spiritually.
Come on.
That's it. Nothing else.
You know what?
Don't worry about them accepting it. They do not care.
Let me say,
stop it.
So I want to say something. It's a question in the Q&A, and it says, I don't know who this is for. What's your stance on intersectionality regarding Black women, Black LGBTQ, and how they are more threatened by police? I don't know if that's true, that they're more threatened by police. Are there specific laws in place that lessen their humanity, therefore legalize their mistreatment? So this the thing. I'm not gonna say I don't believe in intersectionality, but for right now, and for the purposes of this discussion and any discussion that I'm probably gonna have as long as I live in America, I'm Black first, right? Like, I'm Black. I don't want to be identified by who I sleep with, if I got boobs on my body or if I have babies or nothing, right? Because that's why honestly, that Black people are really gonna be a permanent underclass. And I remember I used to read that phrase and I'm like, permanent underclass. Okay, but now I get it. Like, it's so easy to throw a monkey wrench in our stuff. And with the what about, and this the thing, is like not glossing over that this stuff is happening, but this shit is happening to all Black people everywhere, like to the whole diaspora on a global scale. And so now once you start parsing off groups, like, okay, well, okay, all right, I know we talking about Black stuff. Well, let me just slide this in. What about Black women? Okay, well, let me slide this in. What about LGBTQs? Okay, well, let me just slide this in. What about, Black whatever? Now you're divided and you don't have any momentum and you can't get anything done. And the thing that I see in other cultures, I'm talking about, listen, when I worked in corporate America, white people will be literally calling each other mama a dirty dog and then want to walk through the door and then shake their hand and then get that money. Okay, they'll be talking about whoever. Reading they right. They'll walk through the door. Hey, Sara, buddy. Hey, can I? And I'm sitting there, my Black self, like, no, talk that stuff now. What was you just saying? And they act like it never even happened. And that's the thing, because they understand whiteness and they understand what they're protecting and what they're preserving. Us, here we come with our, well, I'm a woman. Listen, you, before you was anything, you was Black. And by all means, identify and go into the spaces that's going to allow you to lend your gifts and talents to the highest advantage of human humanity, not black, not white or anything. I don't care what space that is. But don't come up in a space where people committed to talking about one thing and interjecting your agenda into that. So to answer the question, the thing about LGBTQ, it's otherness. It's otherness. There's always going to be an issue with otherness. Not that it's right or wrong, but I mean, dang, if somebody come and they got a big mole on their face, you know, they're going to be other. They're going to have issues. They're going to get picked on. And so how that translates systemically is now you got police officers that's already out here, don't see no value in black, nothing, anything. And the black community, we're not united enough to have that, to have our value to where, okay, police, you don't value us, but we value ourselves. So, you know, it's gonna have to be a conversation if you do this. So there's no value around the black experience, period. LGBTQ, woman, babies, men, they don't care, they don't care, they don't care.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And it's my job to host and ask the questions.
Boo. I was just like, okay,
thank you.
here
I'm just, you know, hey, just okay.
Well, that was till 10:30.
Okay. Trying to steal
Sorry,
my,
boo, I love you.
Trying to stay, still my shine. Okay, so there was another question. Do you all think, due to the pandemic, that many are able to actually think about it, see it, or have time to address it? And I'm not clear on what it is. Ms. Scott, can you clear that up for me?
Where's she at? Come on in here. Sell a house. Tell these people to come buy a house from you, girl.
Ma'am. Okay, well.
Or type it in the thing, because I want to know.
Yeah. Okay. I'll wait for her to get back to me and I'll ask another question. How do you feel about Juneteenth being a national holiday now?
Oh, I mean, why not?
Price, your mic is muted. I don't know if you're answering or not.
Okay. Not really.
Ooh, rubs hands like Birdman.
Yeah, holidays aren't necessarily what we need.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you.
You know, a lot of times we don't even value, like, you know, the month of February much anyway. I think instead of a holiday, I think a designated day or days or months or whatever, I don't know what it is.
400 years.
Should be focused on another white person educating, who's awakened to what we have been through. They educate their white people on us, not us educating them on us. That is a tiring and ever exhausting task that we cannot do. But if we've been trying to do it for many, many years now. So instead of a holiday to, you know, reflect on or commemorate anything for us necessarily, there needs to be some designated time, in my opinion, to allow or make a white person educate other white people on the true history of African Americans in Africa and through the slave trade into slavery into America and the civil rights, and to where talking about, I guess, we're discussing the ramifications of Jim Crow laws and the Willie Lynch letter.
It's funny you said that, because literally I posted probably last week or the week before a post about how to have workspace conversations for non-POC, for non-Black people, how to have workspace conversations around this. So Asia says, I feel like it's all BS. They wait until now to make it a holiday. It's a distraction. Facts, Price, facts.
Absolutely.
So let's see.
I feel like anytime they start paying attention to Black people, it's a distraction.
Okay. Okay. I think this is for Price. What are your thoughts about the Black officer in training that was present during the arrest and murder of George Floyd?
As that officer in training, he was tied to, number one, probation. And then in most cases, he wouldn't be held liable in any kind of way. And then number three, he probably actually was unable to, as far as responsibility, not even responsibility, but violating policies and procedures in the department to even touch any of that. He can't even, I don't think he could even get involved, especially in places like Atlanta. When you're on probation, number one, he's not a full officer yet.
Okay.
So that's a
Okay.
quick answer for that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Ms. Scott says that she was saying, do you think that more people being privy or being outraged in the current movement, do you think it's due to folks being at home and being able to pay attention now because they are quarantined?
Yes, for sure. And this COVID has been a gift and a curse. And I want to make sure I'm respectful for everybody who's been affected by it, either by death or loss in the families and friends, or just being in the house and different things like that. But yes, on the other side of things, if we had distractions like we did in every other case, and every other case never led to this kind of outcry, protesting and rioting on this wide scale globally, we can only attribute it to being sheltering inside and on the verge, or not verge, but the beginning of a pandemic, and just being able to focus totally on it, only be left with our thoughts and our social media outlets and our news outlets. So
Okay.
yes.
Okay. All right. So last question, unless some questions come in, and then I'll do a recap. We have LaTarro, you and I have had really in-depth conversations about this. Price, you and I I've mentioned this in conversation with you, but I didn't really go into a lot of detail. But I have the thing about systems, right? When you study systems, the way systems are built, they're built to be perpetual, right? So when you put a system in place, it may need editing and amending, but systems are put in place to protect themselves from being broken, right? You put a system in place so that it becomes an automatic process. And so when we look at the system that America uses for law enforcement and the system of white supremacy and the history behind that, I think that there's two things that need to take place. Some people are on the reform side. So they're like, yes, reform the policies, reform the laws, reform. We're going to vote. We're going to do all these things. And then there's another group of people who are revolutionaries, right? So the base of the word revolutionary is revolt. And so these are the people who are trying to change the system from outside of the system, right? And so over time, everyone on the call may not know, but I'm very active, progressively and socially. So over time, I've really struggled with, do we get people to vote? Do we get people to make the calls? Do we do these letter writing complaints? Or do we go to the street and tear stuff up, right? And so the kind of conclusion I've come to, and I hold tension with this, is that we need both. In order for a system to be broken, right? Because if you have the revolutionaries coming from the outside and beating it down, now the system turns its attention to that area to fix, right? Because the system is designed to be perpetual. It's designed to protect itself. So I believe that you need to have pressure from the inside. You need to have reform at the exact same time that you have pressure from the outside, from the revolutionaries, to break the system. What is your take on that?
That is, you hit the nail on the head, because actually what you're seeing in Atlanta with these two officers that are criminally charged is because of the pressure that Atlanta and other cities and states have put on the world. And they put the pressure on, in a wide scale, like you said, from the continued pressure of reform from the outside, but then also in that or I don't know what you want to say, the inside outside, but also those protesters.
Reform and revolution.
Yeah. So it's acting itself out. I mean, in all these other cases, I haven't seen officers be arrested as quickly, as swiftly, and also be criminally charged or formally charged in that way, and that big a scale, especially including something like felony murder, which is a huge, huge thing. I don't know if people know that, but so I would definitely say you have to have both, and everybody has to play their role. And those two designated roles, especially the legislative side, you have so many branches of that, but it can encompasses so much. But you also need them people that are on the front line saying, hell no, we hurting and you gonna feel the pain. To remind everybody, man, these people are really hurt. Yeah, right. we not singing Kumbaya. And so, when they're not doing it just for no reason. The people that were looting, were doing that because they felt like either tried the other way, or they felt like this is my last shot at getting something of value in this society where I probably won't get any kind of reparations or any kind of step ahead anyway. So I might as well just go and steal this flat screen TV. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it all works.
Okay. LaTarro, do you have a response to
that? Yeah, I agree with that for white people. For Black people, honestly, Black people got to get some money, because our place in this system is in Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm gonna see if I could post the link in the chat. He got this article, and it's about plunder, and it's essentially a commentary that he did. This guy wrote about Nazi Germany, and the thesis of the article is what happens when one part of, like, one group in society is designated as the rightful field for plunder. And so he was talking about how when Jewish people would be taken from their homes, like, okay, their neighbors move in their homes, and and it's like, okay, well, is that a bad thing? And just like how it became normal to basically outright treat Jewish people like shit on the street, like from them being taken to their homes, over time it evolved into, okay, well, we don't respect the person either. And again, just like with Black people, like even kids could treat Jewish people like crap. So he's like basically comparing that to the American experience, and it's our whole economic system is built off the suffering of Black people, right? Whether it's Henrietta Lacks and her HeLa cells, or Tuskegee experiments, or the preschool to prison pipeline, or the prison industrial complex, or just suffering. So right now it's Black trauma porn. I heard somewhere dude was like, they kill you, and then you make a shirt, you a brand ambassador for your own pain and trauma, right? Like the Black experience in America is one of plunder. That's it. They're gonna get money out of us, from us, around us, under us, whatever. And so I think we need to get money. Black people call me, I just feel like I can be doing more. What can I do right now? Buy a house. They're like, well, what? Well, shouldn't I go protest? Buy a house. Right? Like, buy a house. If you're really trying to change this trajectory and this dynamic. And Shantanya, so her question about, do you think people paying attention because people in the house, all them white people protesting, they was bored. Okay, they was their time. I see people on social media like, oh, I'm about to go see who all down at the protest today. Right? Like, people was bored. They wanted to socialize, and so they wanted to get out the house. And two, I feel like this not even a Black people fight right now. This is white people fighting with one another because they being told to stay in the house, sit down. They ain't used to being told what to do. They don't like that. In Michigan, they got a woman telling them what to do. They really don't like that, So it's so much stuff in play, and I really don't think any of it has anything to do with Black people. They just know that it's easy to get us riled up behind something, behind anything, behind anybody. So reform, revolt. But this the thing, the system recovers quickly from attacks. And the system needs you to do both those things because it's information. And you know, we both work with information and data, and we understand if you railing against the machine or whatever, just give me all the information so I can be a better, stronger system. Right. So I feel like Black people, we need to buy a house. Buy a house. That's how you fix all this. Buy a house.
Okay, so
From Shantanya.
in the chat, I got some other realtors on here as well. So buy a house,
Yes,
start a business, support Black-owned businesses, speak up at work.
Yes.
A college student says, you know, too true. I 1,000,000% agree. Okay. So we have one last.
Hi, Elijah.
We have one last question for Mr. Price. Oh, buy land, they're not making it anymore. That's what I said.
There you go. There you go.
So Mr. Price, there is a specific question for you regarding what kind of microaggressions did you experience as a police officer?
From who?
As a police officer, I guess from whoever you.
Is right for you? So you got them from everybody?
Yeah.
Right. Who we specifying?
Well,
go
share
into more
both.
detail.
That was the question.
More detail about the question. I mean, explain what you mean by the term of microaggressions, so I know I'm clear on it.
Okay, let me allow this person to speak. I'm going to ask her to unmute. Mrs. Welch? Yes, ma'am.
All right. So yeah, that was my question. What kind of microaggressions did you experience as a police officer? So, you know, just comments by superiors or fellow officers that were demeaning, you know, while you are serving as an officer, while you're trying to protect the public. And the reason I'm asking that question is because I'm trying to understand. I also asked the question about the trainer, the officer that was in training that was present during the arrest and killing of George Floyd. Because as an African-American officer, just being in a toxic culture, I could only imagine what he was dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so I'd like to know if you ever dealt with those sorts of demeaning, racist comments within the culture. You know, you said you would never serve again. So give us some, you know.
Yeah, I never received any.
Why and what you dealt with as an officer.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say that I suffered any racially charged behavior or racial slurs being thrown at me from anyone, but I think I was more sensitive to how I was viewed by my people. So during my stint as an officer, I was in the certain communities that were disenfranchised, or you know, weren't able to you know, have some of the different big, you know, just the different things in life or whatever that you're trying to, you know, obtain and stuff like that. But I was in these communities, and I would see that they viewed me almost as if I was a white officer or an officer that looked just like a white officer. You know what I mean? Like I was going to have the same agenda. And I was more sensitive to that because that was the more deciding factor, because as I was trying to act out my good deeds, I couldn't change, you know, how someone perceived me because I was wearing and looking the same way as other people. So I was getting called like, bro, you black? What you doing out here? You know, policing the people or da-da-da. Wait, you know you're doing something illegal, right? You do know. You do know you can't sell. Okay. But because they had been treated a certain way, or on the day that they were doing something wrong, they were violated way more extremely than they should have been. And so because of that, they looked at me as, well, why are you even fighting with this other person to kill us or to harm us or violate our rights? And so those words that I was called, you know, I always reflect on my time at Kennedy Middle School, which is in the heart of the Bluff, which is in the heart of Zone 1, which is in the heart of Atlanta, West Side Atlanta, where T.I. is from. And I remember when I was a resource officer under the police department, Atlanta Police Department, and it was an extra job, a side job. I'll do it before my shift or after my shift. And I would start the school season off, and some, you know, fifth graders looking at me like, you know, either they rolling their eyes or they like, oh, here come 12, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, damn, this is going to be a hard ass year. But because, you know, I got my degree in sound engineering, actually, and I was in the music industry, writer, producer, stuff like that, I would be able to say, oh, really? Oh, you calling me that? Well, guess who I produce for? These people. And they like, huh? What? So then I learned right then and there that was the connecting tissue that would disarm them from how they viewed me. And by the end of maybe the 2-3 weeks of the beginning of the school year, they my friends, because I made them forget for a split second about me being a police officer, and I was just a human, and I was something that, you know, we had something in common. I'm up here, you know, doing the same rap lyrics as them or dancing with to the same music that they are. And they like, wow, Officer Price, you know, does these things. He human. Some people don't think police officers are human. So I said, cool, if I can do that as a police officer and watch these fifth graders graduate to, you know, through the 8th grade and go off to high school, what more could I do if I wasn't a police officer, but I could tell them that I used to be a police officer and I used to do this and I didn't do these things, and now I'm a representation of something bigger than what I, you know, the influence that I had at the time being a police officer. So that was like, you know, I can only change people, or I felt like I can only change people when I kind of separate myself from something that I recognized is the downfall of me, or the reason why they can't connect, because I represent something bigger. If I represent something a little bit more positive, or, you know, something way more influential, then I can gain more of their trust, and I can do more healing to my people than I can if I'm part of a system, instead of, you know, because I was really helping the system. I was really continuing. I was really continuing to perpetuate every agenda of the broken, not even the broken, the system.
Come on now.
You know, is doing the things that it's supposed to do. So how am I going to think that I'm going to do an effective change on something that's not broken? And I'm aiding in everything else, and it's continuing. So in all, I had to separate myself to be that much more effective.
Thank you.
That's it.
So that segues into another question that came up. What advice would you give to Black officers still serving today? And did the white officers treat you fairly?
I didn't care enough. I don't know. I didn't care enough about fairness. I policed the way I wanted to. Oh, you know what? Yeah, they would be mad at me when I was buying haircuts for some of the corner boys, and, you know, pizzas for the hood and everything like that. I don't get too fucked. I'm sorry, I'm cursing. Sorry. Anyways, sorry, mute that curse word. Sorry.
Yeah, it's too late.
But yeah, no, I would tell my officers, just like I told them to their faces or over the phone quite recently, bro, if you go over your resume right now and you really, really itemize it, you know what you could do in your own business, like I did? You literally, like, the things that what my clients want are not a police officer. They want the qualifications and the situational awareness and the ability to be able to articulate yourself and be able to be in a situation, have a Rolodex of choices that you can make. They want that. So that's you as a police officer right now. You know how much more effective you can be to your people. You know how much more resources are at your disposal when you're not confined to a department. Yes, yes, brother. Leave. leave, because you can do much more change to your people. And it should be every black man's, I'm just going to talk black men, it should be all of our responsibilities to aid in the rise and the value keeping of our people, not just you right now.
We can end this on that.
I like being 40, but I'm concentrating on my son getting older and being a king himself. So it's not about what I'm gaining right now. It's about what I can give to the next generation. Because
that's it.
Yeah.
They the ones that's gonna have to deal with this shit if we don't clean it up.
If we don't get it right, we'll figure it out.
So please, black men, black women, identify how you can better serve your people and your children rather than what you can gain right now. That's it. Y'all got me shedding tears. What the hell?
You know what?
Thank you. So you guys are getting a lot of love. So there's one more thing that came up, and then I'm going to recap, and then I'm going to ask you guys to leave us with one thing. Actually, nope, I'm not gonna, well, okay. So the statement says that, most people think that Black officers are sellouts, and that's not true, but most Black officers don't defend when Caucasian officers attack our people. And I think you just kind of really addressed that when you were just saying that, you're more effective outside of the system.
Yeah.
And so I just want to recap a couple of things. So one of the most important things that, Price, you mentioned earlier, was interacting with the police is to stop talking. You don't have to talk. You don't have to engage them. You should take out your phone, dial 911, put it on speaker, put it on the dash so that your hands are free. If they want to see your hands, you're not reaching for things in your pockets, because we know how that turned out for Philando. And advise 911 that you are being pulled over, tell them your location, and ask them for a supervisor to hold the officers pulling you over accountable. And I want to make a statement about that. I don't know if you guys saw, but CNN ran an article the other day that the 911 dispatcher for the George Floyd situation actually called the supervisor when she saw what was going on, and said out of her mouth, "You might call me a snitch, but I don't see something's going wrong. And I think the supervisor needs to be there, and nobody's told me anything, and nobody's called for him." On top of other 911 calls that were coming in from bystanders. So that's really impeccable, and thank you for sharing that. That is just imperative information. Make sure that if you're getting pulled over for something, that you actually get the infraction, because if not, it would prove harassment, and we want to set a higher standard that you cannot continue to pull me over for things that you don't want, or for just any old thing. The Fourth Amendment prevents unlawful search and seizure, and your car is an extension of your home, and an officer cannot go into any locked area without a warrant. So if you're asked to step out of your vehicle, to please, take the keys out of the ignition, turn the car off, roll up the windows, lock the door, and step out. It is lawful to record officers, but don't impede the arrest, because then you get yourself in trouble if you choose not to impede the arrest. But I know in previous conversation we've talked about whatever choices you make, you have to be held accountable for. So in order to keep us alive. So LaTarro, Miss Traylor, some of the things that you have left us with, some of the big things I saw was, again, to stop talking. You don't have to speak to anybody. As soon as you are approached with any kind of law enforcement or criminal justice, to get a lawyer. And your stance is that we need a lawyer for just being Black, because Black has been criminalized.
Hold on, not approached, but if you about to be arrested.
Okay, if you're about to be arrested, you need to get that, get a lawyer as soon as possible.
If not, be quiet.
If not, be quiet. Yes. Yeah. Criminal law is hugely procedural and not substantive, so it doesn't matter if you didn't do it. You have to be able to go through the procedure to prove that everything was done the right way, and that it's being able to be proven, not just you know, but this is my circumstance, and trying to plead your case. And then you also recommended the documentary about James Baldwin, that I Am Not Your Negro.
Yes. Tell your
okay.
white friends.
Okay. Any last thoughts from you, Ms. Traylor?
No, but I love you know, what Price said about tomorrow. I always tell, and I get it, Black people, I get it. We still trying to be acknowledged. But at this point, it's not about us. It's about the kids and the 7 generations coming later, and buy a house, buy something that they'll have. Because the thing about it is, if we don't get our economics together, we're going to always keep having these experiences. Because there's more money in killing us and beating our ass and locking us up than it is in having us out here, you know, doing the right thing for right now. Not saying we're doing the wrong thing, but you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
About so with regard to that Black narrative and how it's tied with criminality and stuff like that, like until we start owning homes and, you know, contributing economically proactively, we're going to keep having these experiences.
Okay. Thank you for those final thoughts. Price?
I'm good. Thank you, Sarah and Miss Traylor.
Taylor with an
Miss
I.
Traylor. Miss Traylor.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak openly about my experiences and where I hope for us to go as a people, and, you know, just how to continue to fight for things that we believe in, and our rights included, for sure.
Yes.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Sarah.
sharing.
Thank you. Price, when you come to Atlanta, you're going to have to tap me in a concert or something, man.
Oh, Lord.
I told Sarah,
Look,
Sarah, holla at your boy.
You mean in 2021? Because I don't know about 2020. I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop the recording now.
Okay, bye.
Wait, hold on. I want to thank everybody for participating and coming out, and just thank you so much. I am going to put the videos up, so I will let you all know, and I just thank you for your support.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Thank you for participating.
Yes. Thank
you.
Bye,
have
everybody.
A good one,
have a good night.
Wait, Amari, don't go yet.
All right. Okay.